Chris Hines is an animal rights activist and filmmaker from the UK. He has worked with numerous AR organizations and personalities over the years as a cameraman and video editor, working jobs for Viva, Joey Carbstrong, Plant-Based News, Meet the Victims, the Save Movement, and many more. And his work has included everything from filming undercover investigations to large-scale protests and street outreach. Chris is also the producer and director of the upcoming documentary, Taking Note, which looks into the interconnection between animal rights and music. The film has been in production since 2016 and features numerous musicians such as Moby, Kat Von D, Andy Hurley, Fall Out Boy, the Veronicas, Earth Crisis, and many more. The film is due for release next year, and I understand Chris is working very hard on it presently. So with that, I will make Chris I will give him the spotlight. And the floor is yours, Chris. Thank you for joining us and welcome.
No worries. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Apologies for not being able to do the original date. Unfortunately, I got struck down with COVID, which was always great fun. So I was a bit out of action. I'm still a bit sniffly, so if you hear me sniffing at all, that'll be why. But besides that, I'm back in good health, which is all good. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so we're going to dive into the world of filming street outreach. So basically, I'm going to cover everything from like the most simple setup you can possibly think of, all the way up to basically what Joey Carbstrong would use. So you've got an entire range of things to pick from. It will work for all kind of, depending on what budgets and everything you've got. Hopefully there'll be something in here for you to get you started doing that. So the first thing I actually want to talk about, which is what I consider actually the most important thing when it comes to street outreach interviews, which is something that most people don't think about as the first thing, is actually audio, not video. So while video is important, and it's great to have a good picture, if you can't hear what people are saying, it's a waste of time. So audio is definitely the #1 priority that anyone should think of. I mean, to the point where even if your entire video was ruined and there was nothing on it, if you've got audio, you could still make a video from this and put your own footage over the top. So that's how important audio is. So basically, I've got a few different kind of setups I can kind of run you through so you can get an idea of how you can do it. And basically we'll go through audio, then we'll go through video, and we'll editing and all that kind of point. So we'll start with audio. So the most obvious thing you can do to record good audio, which you've probably all got in your pocket, your phone. If you literally go onto your there'll be an audio recorder pretty much on whether you're on Android or iOS or any other operating system you might have randomly installed for some reason. You'll find there is a recording thing on there. This is actually surprisingly good. It's better than you think it is. And all you literally do, like recording, and you just point like this, use it as a microphone. Completely free because you've already got one in your pocket, and is a really, really easy way to start. Now, one of the things that I will discuss with this is, with this kind of setup, obviously you're only recording the audio. So you will have to sync that later with your video footage, but I will explain how we do that a bit later on. So this is step one. If you've got this, great. If you've got no money, but you've got a phone, your audio is set. Now, a better way to record audio would be to use a mic, preferably what's known as a lavalier mic, which is one of these. So this is one of the ones I use here. Don't know if that's actually going to go into focus. There you go. This is a Rode Smart Lav. So we actually use these to record majority of the interviews for my documentary. So that's the quality that they are. And they're not particularly expensive. I mean, in UK prices, they're £44, which is not really that much. And really great quality. And all you literally do is plug them into your phone. There's an app which is, did I actually write down the name of the app? I think it's called Rode Rec, like Rode Record. And you can literally just record straight into the phone. So you could hook this up on yourself, hook it to your phone, set it recording, put the phone in your pocket, and you're all go to do that, which is super easy. And I think these also work with Android as well. I know the iOS Rode Rec app is meant for iPhone, but I think there's an app. I'm sure I wrote it down. Maybe I forgot it on my notes, but there is one. I think it's called Just Recorder or something like that, which will use that. So I mean, it's quite easy if you just search for like Rode Smart Lav and search for Android things, you'll be able to find one. But a lavalier mic is probably the staple, I would say, for doing street outreach. It's really good. You can just pin it to yourself and just get on with what you're doing, which is great. Now, one thing that is bearing in mind, which is I'll talk about with these, which is an important thing, is the positioning. So if you do get one of these, you want to make sure you put it in the right place. You don't want it up here, because all you're going to get is your voice booming, and whoever you're speaking to's voice is going to be kind of overshadowed by what you're saying. So generally, you want it kind of more down here on your chest and raise your volume. So then you've got you, and then you'll probably still be a little bit louder, but that's normally fine. You're asking the questions, but it will just allow everyone around you to be picked up well. And the good thing is they're small, they're discreet. A lot of people won't even notice you're wearing one, and that's when you're going to get your best reactions from people, when they don't realize they're being recorded, or filmed, and it's a completely natural reaction, because as soon as people see a camera, a lot of people play up to it. They don't want to look bad on camera or anything like that, so yeah, they'll kind of play along with it. So that is something that I would definitely recommend. Obviously, you ain't got any money, use your phone. If you can, get yourself a lavalier mic and you can plug it into your phone. Now, what you can do to make your life even easier is you can go one step further, and you can get a lavalier mic with a wireless microphone system. Now, the good thing about this is you can plug this directly into your camera. I think you can also get wireless systems for phones as well. I've never got one myself, but I'm pretty sure they're available. But the good thing about this is it will record your audio direct to your video at the same time, which is perfect. It means less editing, which is, no one wants to be spending hours and hours editing. So these are really good. These are actually very affordable. So this is these are a K and F wireless system, and this was £90 for these, like UK. I didn't convert it all to the US. I didn't know how many people from the US or Canada or anyone was going to be on this. So hopefully you guys can convert it. It's normally about the same in dollars, from what I imagine anyway. So these are really, really handy, and it just saves you that step of having to sync your audio afterwards. Now, the one that I do a lot of work with Joey Carbstrong, filming him, and he uses another one called the Rode Go 2. That one's more expensive. It's about £209 for that one, but the quality is really, really good. It's really crisp. It eliminates a lot of the background noise and everything. It's, it picks up everything that you need. So that's kind of like, if you've got the budget and you want to go a bit more high end, something like the Rode Go 2 would probably be a good option. So yeah, so as far as audio goes, like I said, you can start with just your phone. You can start with a lavalier mic plugged into your phone. You can go or you can go for a wireless system. They're kind of like your three main options. I mean, realistically, if you could even use like an old dictaphone if you wanted to. There's like the old dictaphones with an SD card or anything. Whatever you can find, just make sure that you've got good audio. That is the kind of staple of these things. If you don't sort your audio out, then your video is not going to be that watchable. I mean, you can caption them and stuff, but it just won't be as engaging. So that's step one, audio. So let's move on to...
There's Chris. Sorry to interrupt. There's a couple questions in the chat. Do you mind if I read them out to you?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, sorry, I need to load the chat up so I can see everyone again. Yeah, great.
So James made the comment that he hid his mic under his beard before and it didn't work out very well. So I think we can relate to that. Well, those of us who have had beards anyways. And then Doreen said, I bought a cheaper version, I think called Cinco. Is that an okay quality mic? It has 2 transmitters and a receiver.
Cinco, I've not actually used one of those before.
SYNCO.
Yeah, I'm just having a look now. I mean, is it the Cinco wireless you've got? 2 transmitters and a receiver. Yeah, I mean, the transmitters will probably be absolutely fine. The only thing you might find if you buy cheap wireless systems is sometimes the actual lavalier mic itself isn't a particularly good quality. So you can normally just buy a better lavalier mic and plug it into your wireless system. But I'd imagine the actual system itself is probably fine. I mean, I'm just looking, I mean, obviously I've never used it, so I can't give like a proper review, but I mean, they're all pretty much of a muchness, they all pretty much do the same thing. But, just see if you're happy with the quality overall, as long as it's clear and everything. If it's not, got the quality that you like, it's probably not the actual receiver. It's probably just the microphone. So you could always just upgrade to another lavalier mic.
Okay, Thank you for the question, Doreen. Thank you, Chris. And then James asked the question. He said, I also found one of my mics was very directional. I assume omnidirectional is better.
Yeah, because if you go, obviously with a directional mic, such as the mic I'm using here, it's, whatever it's pointing at, it's looking to pick up. If I was behind it, for example, or to the sides, you're not going to get that the same thing. So yeah, you do want a mic that's going to pick up everything around you. So yeah, omnidirectional is obviously the most ideal.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. And do you mind if I interrupt you when questions show up in the chat?
No, for sure. No, go for it. Yeah,
Oh,
not a problem. Yeah,
perfect.
As long as I'm helping people, that's all good.
Yeah. And for anyone who just joined, the biggest takeaway from the first part of this workshop is that if nothing else works, your audio must work. Audio is very important to getting.
Audio is key. With bad audio, you might as well not even bother with it, to be honest. So now we'll go into the into the cameras and stuff. And again, the cheap option, your phone. Your phone is great for pretty much everything. So I mean, you could literally just get someone to film for you, and you could be using your phone as a microphone, or you could go right the way back to when Joey Carbstrong started. He literally used to plug a lavalier into the phone, and then he would hold the phone out like this. I think I can get it in the shot here, with the microphone, and just point it at people and just literally interview them like that. That's how Joey's first videos were, and it works. So that's one way you could do it. I mean, but what I would recommend if you do want to kind of, I mean, to be fair, I mean, phone qualities are pretty good these days. But I mean, if you do want to go for that bit more of a professional look to them, if you're looking to really, kind of push like a YouTube channel, or you just really want to go for maximum impact, I would recommend looking at DSLR cameras for these. So there's a couple of options you can go. You can go the kind of cheaper ones. Now, the ones I used to use were the Canon 600D and the 550D, which is this one here. And you can pick these up pretty cheap these days. I think you can probably pick them up for about, what, 250, 300 pounds these days. But the good thing about these is, unlike with phones, is obviously you can get that cinematic feel to your images. You can get that depth of field, that nice blurry background look, and all that stuff if you want. It's a lot, there's a lot more you can do with these, but with that, there is a lot more of a learning curve for doing that as well. So it all depends on how techie you want. If you just want to get it done, use a phone. So I would probably recommend one of these if you wanted a cheap option. I mean, they only film up to 1080p, so they're not 4K, but to be honest, most content you probably watch online is filmed in 1080p anyway, so you probably don't need that super high quality. And the lenses and stuff are pretty affordable for these. You won't have to pay up too much. I mean, the setup that I've got on the one that Joey uses, we use a Sony a7 III, and that's when it starts getting a little bit more expensive. I think my setup's about 2,600 with the lens. But there is a slightly cheaper one you could go for, which I'd definitely recommend, which is the Panasonic GH5, which is amazing for video, and it's got built-in stabilization, which is good for keeping that steady shot. But ultimately, as I said, the audio is the most important. So as long as you can get a moderately good image, the audio will still allow that video to do well. I mean, I have filmed stuff in the past on GoPros. You could literally get someone holding a GoPro next to you if that is all you have available. You don't have to go these big elaborate things. Ultimately, which is what I'll come to later, what makes a good street interview video is not how good the camera is or anything like that, how cinematic it looks. It's what the content is. How good was that interaction and everything? That is what's going to grip people. Someone could film something on a brick, but if the interaction was amazing, people are going to watch that, and it's going to be engaging, and they're going to get what you're going to get the result that you want from it. So don't overthink it. Just use what you can, work within your budgets, and if you want to make it look more fancy as you go, then you can always upgrade as the money comes. But concentrate on getting that good content. So when it comes to the DSLR cameras, one thing that I would definitely recommend is getting yourself a lens with a long zoom, because like I said earlier, you kind of want, the best interactions are always going to come from people that don't really know that you're filming. As soon as they see cameras, people do play up. So if you can get something with a nice long zoom that allows you to stand back out the way while someone's outreaching, then you're just going to get the best, the best reaction from them. So the lens I personally use, I mean, I haven't got a long lens, but then I don't tend to film that much street outreach things for myself. I've got a Tamron 28 to 75. So I mean, even the kit lenses you get, I mean, this kit lens goes up to 55, and even that, you could probably still stand quite far back and still, if you're filming and you just kind of don't look at them while they're talking, just kind of hold it there and kind of look around as if you're just holding a camera, you can kind of get away with it. But the one Joey uses, he's got two lenses. He's got a Sony 24 to 240, which is like super zoom. It's really great. And he's got a Tamron 17 to 170, and they are really, really useful. I mean, when we were filming in Australia, there was a guy that he was outreaching, and I was like miles away from this guy, but it was great. I could zoom right in on him and he couldn't see I was filming whatsoever. And it ended up being a really engaging video. I think it was like carnivore versus vegan video. It got quite heated. So yeah, so a long zoom if you're looking for DSLR. And obviously with your phones, you can obviously zoom in as well. The aim basically is just try and be inconspicuous. Yeah, don't look, try not to look like you're filming them. Try and just kind of, blend in with everything so people don't see you. You'll be fine. I mean, even if you do this, you can always crop in using editing programs. Even if the quality lowers a little bit, it doesn't really matter as long as the video is engaging. One thing I would recommend with lenses, just in case there's any of you that do outreach in the evening, because I don't know if any of you do evening ones where it's a bit darker, you might want to look at a lens with a lower aperture. So aperture is, try to think, we have to go into all the details of how DSLR works. So basically it allows for lower light. It allows more light to come into the camera. So you want to get something that's about an f2.8 or lower, which is just gives you that little bit of extra light into the camera when you're filming at night. I mean, you could even stick a light on top, but then you're looking a little bit obvious there. But it's up to you. So that's kind of that's your audio camera lenses. What I'm going to do is tell you a few other useful items, and then I'm going to give you some example setups. So kind of combining all these things of ones you might want to try. So other useful items that you will need: SD cards. It sounds obvious, but SD cards, and you want them if you're using a DSLR to be a speed 10. So I don't know if you can see. I don't know if that will focus on that. It might be a bit too close. Pull it back at all. It's probably too tiny. But basically, there's a little tiny circle on these with a number in. That's the speed of the card. And why that's important is how quickly it can write data onto the card. So if you're filming a lot of stuff and you've got a very slow card, sometimes it can cause the card to conk out while you're filming, and that's the last thing you want. You don't want anything to go wrong. So always make sure you've got a high-speed card, and obviously make sure you've got a big card with a lot of memory on as well. You don't know, you could end up filming something that's going on for 2 hours. It might be like the most epic debate of all time happening. You want to make sure you got space there. You don't want like a 16 gigabyte card and suddenly it fills up after 10 minutes or something. Headphones are very useful for the person monitoring as well. It's always good to be able to listen to what's actually going on, because if you if the audio cuts out or anything and you haven't got headphones, you've got no way of telling. You can't let the person outreaching know that you've cut out or anything, and you can fix problems a lot easier if you've got headphones on. I'd also recommend getting a monopod, which you could use actually for cameras or anything like that. It's basically just a one-legged tripod, which you can just sit on the floor. You can get an adapter for whatever you need, whether it's a camera or a phone, and it just allows the person filming to hold it still, because no one wants to watch shaky camera for ages. So these are nice and cheap. You can pick them up on Amazon and eBay for not much at all. So that's a good one to get. Another simple thing, very, very simple, but always good to have, a lens wipe. Make sure that lens is clean, even on your phone, because you don't want a big smudge over, a big thumbprint over someone when you watch your footage back, because that ain't gonna That ain't gonna look great. Extra batteries are also a must. You don't want to run out of battery power. Again, if you've got that epic interview that's going on for 2 hours and suddenly your battery's low, you need to be able to swap it quick. Get a few of those. You could, this is kind of like, you might not need it. You might, if you are looking at doing a lavalier mic. Oh, what's going on there? I think my camera is just overheated. Right. It's been on for ages, that's why. Hold on, bear with me 2 seconds. I'll just swap to my other. I've got another thing here. Where is it? We'll go to this one. There we go. We're back in business. Yeah, so you could get you can get extenders for the lavalier mic. So if you really wanted to, I mean, I don't think many of you would, but you could always get an extension and then you could plug the lavalier direct into the camera and you could just have this long wire. I mean, I just put it on there just in case you might want to do that. I mean, I've never used them, but you could. And another good thing you can get if you've got DSLR is one of these, which is very handy, which is called a battery grip, which allows you to put multiple batteries into your camera. So this goes into the battery part, and then you've got a little thing here, which you can then put multiple batteries in, which is handy. So more power, which is great. So I'll give you some examples of setups then. So the first one I'll go for is the super basic. This is the super basic of all of them, which you can do on your own. And actually, just to let you know, I've actually got a Google Doc that I've made, which I'll link to everyone at the end, where I've actually put example videos of people actually using these setups. So you can actually see how they work in real life kind of thing. So the first one would be, like we said, the phone with the lavalier mic. So you could plug your, like this mic into your phone. Oh, just a quick one. If you have got the newer iPhones, you might need to get a jack to lightning adapter. They're really cheap, just so you can plug it in, because obviously the new ones don't have headphone ports, which is really fun. So yeah, you can plug it into there and you can literally be outreaching someone, just holding it up here with your microphone and interviewing them, or you could put it on a selfie stick or something like that. Super easy. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we've got one there. So if you look at James's camera there, if you can see James, he's actually got one of the adapters there. He's prepped. So that's what you need. So that's like the super most basic. Then, as I said, that is how Joey Carbstrong started doing street interviews. And I put one of the links to one of his videos. He's literally there holding the camera out with a microphone, interviewing people. The second most basic is obviously doing the same thing, but just getting a friend to have the camera for you. So you can just concentrate on having a lavalier and concentrate on the interaction and not having to worry about the actual filming. All they basically need is they can either hold it in their hand or get a monopod, stick it on top, and that's it. Super simple. All you'll probably need to buy is the mic. Most of you have got phones anyway. Should be pretty set. Now, the ideal setup, which is the one that I would most recommend, is obviously having the wireless setup with a good camera and and a good lens. That is the most ideal. So for example, I use the Sony a7 III with the Tamron 28-75 and the KF wireless system. Joey uses the same camera with the Sony 24-240, which obviously gives you more distance to be able to do stuff, and he's using the Rode Go one. So that is the most ideal one, and the one I'd recommend you kind of building up to eventually. But I'd say for most people to start off with, I'd probably go with the get someone with a phone to film you. You use your phone as an audio thing. Perfect way to get started there. So great. That's equipment. So I don't know if we've got any questions just about equipment before we go on to the actual filming.
We do. We have a couple of questions about lenses. I think you already answered this one. The question is from Daryl Dempsey. What lens do you use with Joey Carbstrong?
Okay, so the lens we use, he's got two lenses, which is the Sony 24-240, which is like a super distance on it, or the Tamron 70-170 2.8. You could probably get a cheaper lens than the Tamron, because the Tamron, basically, when you start getting the 2.8 aperture, which is what gives you the low light, they start getting a bit more expensive. But if you're filming in the day, you can get away with ones that are variable apertures that are higher, even if they're like 4 to 5. It won't make any difference if you're in good lighting. You only really need that if you're either really fussy and wanting to get that blurry background cinematic look, or you're in low light. So you can probably get one a lot cheaper that will do exactly the same for cheaper. So yeah, they're the ones that Joey used.
Got it. We don't all have to film like Joey Carbstrong right off the bat.
I mean, just remember, as I said, Joey started with a phone and a lavalier mic. That's
Hey.
you know, that's all you need. And you know, those videos obviously did great, and he's doing well. So start simple.
That's right. That's right. The next question is from James. He says, I was looking at a 24-105 millimeter Sony lens, but I want to be also able to film in low light. We do a lot of combos at sunset. What is a good aperture speed for multi-purpose?
Yes, I'd go for the 2.8 at minimum. Obviously, if you can get lower, do, but they start getting real expensive when you start getting up to like the 1.8s and 1.4s. 2.8, a good one. I don't know what camera you're using, but if you've got Sigma lenses are normally quite good for Canons. You can only get some quite cheap ones there. Oh, you're looking at Sony A7 III as me. Okay, Tamarins, the Tamarin lenses, they're all really great. They're all 2.8. You know, Sony lenses aren't particularly cheap, but yeah, if you can get 2.8, you'll be fine.
He's looking at a Sony A7 III.
Yeah, that's the same exactly the same camera that I've got.
Okay. Yeah. So it must be good. Okay. Thanks, Chris. And then the last question for now is from Felix. He says, on a digital SLR, what mode, manual, aperture priority, shutter priority, do you recommend using for good video? Is enabling auto ISO recommended?
Okay, so I would always use manual for filming because you want your shutter speed to start to be set. Basically, if you want basically the cinematic style for filming, the kind of default way of filming is filming in it's 23 frames or 24 frames. It's like 23.95 or something frames per second, which you'll set in your which will be set in your menu. And then what you do is for whatever your frame rate is, you have double the shutter speed. So what you would actually have for that is the nearest you can get is 50. So you basically want your shutter to be at 50. Your ISO, yes, I would keep it on auto, especially filming outside, because with sunlight and everything and clouds and everything, it can go up and down, and you can get some real overexposed shots. We had some times like that when I was filming for Joey in the early days. We kind of didn't use auto ISO, and then some bit was like real blown out. And so yeah, auto ISO, and then obviously you can then use the aperture to then balance it out, use that to get the right exposure. But yeah, I'll definitely recommend auto ISO, and obviously your shutter speed should always be set. Generally you should be on the 24 frames a second, and you should be at 50 shutter speed, unless you're trying to do slow-mo or something, but that's a different conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Those are all the questions for now.
Yeah, I hope that's always making sense. If this is all too technical for people as well, I don't know how people along. Please feel free to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and I have no idea
what you're talking about. But
yeah, and I can try and make it simple. But a lot of these things that we're talking about here do come down to when you are using DSLR cameras and DSLR cameras only. That's the kind of the more advanced filming thing. For most people, if you're just going to use your phone, or you're going to use a GoPro, or you found some sort of digital camera online that pretty much does everything for you, you're not really going to have to worry about these kind of little technical bits, that you'll be fine. So don't panic too much if you don't know what we're talking about.
Okay.
Okay, so let's move on then to the filming. So hopefully by now you've got an idea of a setup that you could use, whether it's a DSLR or just using your phones. You should hopefully have an idea of, right, I know how I can at least film my outreach. So let's move on to the actual the filming part. Now, the first thing, and I always like to remind people of this because it's so important and you need to hammer it into yourself, is before you do any filming, make sure everything is charged. Okay, you don't realize the amount of people that go, oh, I forgot to charge all the batteries, or I forgot to do this. Make sure everything is done. That is like number one priority. Make sure your SD cards are wiped, you're all ready to go. You don't want to get out there and discover that, oh, my battery's only half done and my SD card can only record for 5 minutes because I didn't take off the outreach from yesterday. So it seems like a really simple thing, but just make sure that you you really get that down. And if you're using DSLRs, make sure to get your settings and everything, kind of all ready and sorted to go. The last thing you want to do is get to an event or something and something happens and you haven't got everything set up and you've got to fiddle around sorting everything. Do it when you're at home. Get the basics done so that you can get your camera out if need be and film straight away, because there are sometimes those opportunities. You might get someone even come up to you while you're setting up that ends up coming into a conversation, or there might be a heckler that you might want to film or anything like that. Just always be prepared to film right from the get-go. So I'd say the most important thing to think about when you're filming is framing. I say that is the biggest thing. You need to make sure that you're getting a good picture. I've given cameras to people to film me before and kind of didn't really explain kind of what I want. And you end up with footage of the back of your head. You can't see them. You can't see their reactions. They feel like they're scared to move. They just have to stand in one place holding the thing. And that's not going to get you what you need. You really want to make sure that you're getting people's faces, their reactions, and you get as a nice aesthetic shot as possible. If you are someone who's filming, never be afraid to move. If people are getting in the way or anything, don't think you just got to stand there because you can't move. Just move. It won't matter. You've still got that audio going on at the same time, and people will appreciate the fact you've moved to a better angle and the rest of the video is nicer, rather than you've spent 5 minutes waiting for someone to get out of your way. So always, make sure to get as nice shot as possible. And obviously make sure mainly to concentrate on them, not the person talking, because it's their reactions ultimately we want to see. So if there was, for example, a situation where it was really difficult to get the outreacher's face and the people they're talking to's face, always focus on the people that are being spoken to, because they're the stars of the show. Ultimately, they're the ones that we want to hear their opinions. We want to see their reactions to the questions and for that. So always bear that in mind. Something that's worth looking up if you want a nice aesthetic thing is there's a thing in videography called and photography actually called the rule of thirds, which is like a nice way of framing things. And I guess a simple way to explain it is if you imagine the image that you've got now of me on the webcam and you put 2 lines down here, you almost want to line people up to kind of be just on the line, so they're just kind of just off center. Sometimes they're not, I mean, the image we've got here with me in center works fine for this, but sometimes it just works better being slightly off. It's a little trick that people use that just makes things just a little bit more aesthetic. So it might be, there's loads of videos on the rule of thirds and stuff. You can easily just Google that and have a look, but it might just make everything look a little bit nicer. One thing that is worth discussing when you're filming, especially if you're using a camera that has autofocus and manual focus, is knowing which one to use. A lot of people think they can stick it on autofocus and everything's fine until people start walking in the way, and then it starts focusing on everyone you don't want it to be focused on. So what I would advise is, you need to use your own judgment on this, and depending on the situation, if it's in a situation where literally no one's going to step in front of them and it's quite open, then you could probably use autofocus and get away with it. If you think there's going to be people getting in the way, or you're going to have to be moving or stuff like that, it might be worth manually focusing just to make sure, and so you've got a bit more control over what you're doing, because the last thing you want is just like everyone out of focus and blurry and everything, because it's just not going to look that great. Now, a good tip for filming, if you have the ability, which I know a lot of phones do as well as DSLRs, is if you've got the space, it's actually really good to film everything in 4K. Now, the files are going to be massive. Get yourself an external hard drive if you're going to start filming in 4K, because it will eat up all the space that you've got. Okay, I mean, I've literally got like 10 hard drives over here. It's ridiculous. Like filled with stuff. Like it will fill up everything. But the good thing about filming in 4K is the image is bigger, which means that if you edit it, actually, I should probably explain just to kind of, for people that don't kind of understand this, when you go on YouTube, you've probably seen the little quality thing in the corner, right? And it will say like 720p, 1080p, 4K. That's basically the increase in quality. As well as the quality increasing, the actual images themselves are bigger. They hold more pixels, you see. Now, the majority of stuff, because you're going to be editing for online, you don't really need to edit things in 4K. I mean, you can if you want, but you don't really need to. You can get away with editing in 1080, which is kind of like the standard that most people watch. So the good thing is, because the image of 4K is bigger than 1080, it means that when you put it into your editing program, technically you can zoom in without losing any quality to a certain extent, which is really handy. And you can use it to do some quite good little tricks, because sometimes you can actually, you could edit a part where it's a close-up on their face, then a close-up on your face, and you can get that effect as if there's more than one camera actually filming them, which is quite handy and just adds a little bit more professionalism to that. And and also it gives you a bit more flexibility as well, because maybe you weren't happy with the framing when you filmed it, and that you can just chop in a bit, which is good, and you won't lose any quality. So if you do have that ability, filming in 4K is very handy, because it will just give you that, like I said, extra flexibility for you to do that. And the only other thing about filming that I wrote, which is again, I just kind of reiterating what I said earlier, is if you are filming, try and make yourself not look too obvious. Like a lot of times I will stand there with my camera and I'll have it set up facing them, and I'll just hold it and I'll look away, and I'll just be like pretending I'm not filming them, even though I'm clearly am. But it does just help put people at ease, because some people don't like being filmed, or they're not going to give you the reaction you want. So just try and be as inconspicuous as possible. You don't want to be right up in people's faces and everything. You might get a better shot, but ultimately you might not get the reactions and stuff which are going to make the best content. So that is my next film. Has anyone got any questions about the actual filming part? Actually, you said when I edit 4K on my old laptop, it's really loud. Yeah, you need a laptop that can handle 4K footage as well. I'd really recommend, if you've got the money, the new M1 Mac range. They're amazing. Even the MacBook Air is that can churn through 4K easily. But yeah, you're going to need a lot more power in your computers. But yeah, does anyone have any questions about the filming aspect, or should we move on from there? Can't see anything at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any questions either.
Okay, well, if anyone pops up, we can do that. So yeah, actually, and the only other thing I should mention, actually, which is a thing that will definitely help you coming on to the next section, is if you are using a lavalier mic and you are using a camera and they're separate and you need to sync them, a really good thing to do to help you to do that is, once you've got your phone recording or whatever you're using to record, and you've got your camera recording, stand close by and clap. Because what that does is it creates a spike in the waveform on the camera and on your audio, which makes it easier to line them up when you're editing. If you need to manually do it, instead of like fiddling around, you could just line up those two spikes at the beginning, and that your audio and thing are going to be together. So it's quite a standard thing. You see the clapper boards they do at films, that's basically the same thing. They just use a clapper board to make the sound, so it creates a spike and allows you to sync things. So we've got someone saying, after we film combos, I assume you have to ask permission first before posting. Well, this is a bit of a, I mean, we can talk about this before we go on to the other bit. So the laws are different no matter where you go, and even within a certain country, depending on the location you are. Like if you're on somewhere which is technically private property, there might be different laws when it comes to filming than if you're in a public space. Now, the way me and Joey have done it, to be honest, is we just do it. And we've never asked people, unless it's a sat down interview, we just film them. But if we think they will have a problem, then we blur their faces out. That's what we do to be safe. I mean, ultimately, I don't think you're going to get into any trouble. I think the most that might happen is they might ask you to take a video down or anything. But I mean, I've been editing with Joey for years. I can't remember any time we've ever been approached to necessarily take down a video or anything like that. It's, I mean, you might have even seen, the recent one when he interviewed the slaughterhouse owner and everything. Obviously, he blurred the face, but they didn't, even if they asked to take it down, he probably wouldn't. So, I mean, it's kind of down to you. I mean, I'd say it's a nice thing to ask people. If you think you've had a good conversation and you think they'll be fine with it, you could always ask just for that peace of mind. But I would say 99% of people that do outreach don't bother asking whatsoever and just put it online. And then if people have got a problem with it, they'll message. But I mean, yeah, if you are concerned about that. I would just look up what the filming laws are for where you are based, because it's going to vary country to country. From what I know with the UK, I think it's fine if they're in a public space. They kind of are allowed to be filmed. I think it's different if you were going to use that for in a commercial sense, like if you were going to create that content and sell it and make money out of it, then it might be a different thing. You might need to get them to sign something to approve that. But as far as it's a YouTube video, I think you're probably okay. I saw there's a couple more questions there. I always ask parents with kids. Anyone else will tell you they're not called for it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're definitely with children. I say that's a really good point you brought up there. If minors are involved, it might be worth getting permissions, because it could just be a bit weird if you're putting up interviewing children without parents' permission. They could get pretty funny with that. So I'd probably avoid there. But generally, you'll be speaking to people that should be fine anyway. And James said, when I recorded separate video and audio, tried to sync before, they would desync after about 5 minutes. How to fix this? Yeah, that can be a pain in the ass. So, I mean, most of the times that happens with me, you end up, it kind of drifts, doesn't it? You kind of it seems fine, and at one point it will just drift out. You kind of have to just find that drift point and keep altering it, which is really annoying. Or sometimes it doesn't work all the time, but it has worked occasionally. If you slow down or slightly speed up the audio or the video, sometimes it just puts it back into place. It might need like a millisecond or something, but that normally generally happens when either the video is being recorded at a weird speed or the audio is getting recorded at a weird speed. So I don't know what setup you're currently using. I mean, I haven't had that problem. I used to have that problem quite a while back, but I'd probably just check what you're using to record the audio with, because something's not right. And maybe it's recording it in a because there's different like hertz, isn't there? You can record like 44, 48. I don't know how how much you can customize how it's recorded. It might just be looking up and check that everything's the same. So I can't give a more accurate answer there. I've had that problem before. It's just a pain in the ass, to be honest. But yeah, hopefully if you can, like I said, if you're having problems with sync, wireless is the way to go. You don't have to worry about it then. You can just literally put it straight on the camera. You don't have to do any more syncing, and it's such a dream to just do that. It saves you so much time. Cool. Glad that helped anyway. That's great. Okay, well, so that kind of covers the filming bit. So obviously, once you've done your filming, then obviously you come on to editing. You need to edit it. Now, one thing I would bear in mind straight away is where you want to put these videos, right? Because you ultimately want as many people viewing these videos as humanly possible. So you should look to edit these videos in as many formats as possible. You want to edit them for TikTok, you want to edit them for Instagram Reels, you want to edit them for Twitter, for Facebook, for YouTube, everywhere and everywhere. So I would say, as you're starting to do your edit and going through it, I would definitely start taking notes of those bits that really stand out. Because obviously on TikTok and stuff, you've only got a certain amount of time. So if there's like a really good bit, just make a note, like, oh, this bit at 5 minutes or whatever was really good. This bit here, this bit here. You might actually find that just from one outreach conversation, you would end up with a video with the whole conversation, and you could end up with 5 or 6 different clips. Like you might ask a question purely about dairy or something and think, well, that's great. That's like a really good, answer and a really good reaction to that subject. Or then you might ask about something else. There might be a bit where you're talking about, the health aspects or something, and think, oh, that could be another video. So as you're doing your cut, just always bear in mind like the little bits that you might be able to cut out as you're doing it. Now, I guess before we actually go into the editing, some of you might need some software to actually do that if you've never actually done editing before. So, I mean, that's always the thing. I mean, you can do some basic editing on your phone, but if you've got a laptop, a lot better, you can get a lot more stuff done. So as far as free stuff, which is always great, if you want nice free things. So on Windows, you have the Windows Video Editor app, which I don't know whether you need to download it or whatever. I know it's completely free. I'm a Mac user, so I'm not sure. It used to be called Windows Movie Maker back in the day. That's a good place to start, completely free. Or if you're on a Mac, iMovie. iMovie comes with it. Really great software. Tons of tutorials online. Really, really easy to pick up. Now, if you wanted to go a bit more advanced and it still be free, there's some really good software called DaVinci Resolve, which is actually pro level editing software, but it's completely free. They do have a pro version you need to pay for, but for the kind of stuff you're going to be doing, it's going to work great. The only disadvantage of using DaVinci is it's not as well used as some of the other pro apps. It's really good. A lot of industry people use it, but it's a little bit more fiddly to use. There's a bit more of a learning curve on it. But if you're happy with it being free and you're happy to spend a bit more time learning, that's a great option. I personally use software called Final Cut Pro for the Mac, which costs is $249.99, just a one-off fee to buy it. But if you know someone who's a student, you can actually buy the it's called like the Apple Student Bundle, and it comes with Final Cut, and it's actually only like $179, so you can get quite a lot of money off if you know someone who's a student and get that. Or there's Adobe Premiere, which is for Mac and PC, but there's a monthly fee to use that, which is £19.97. Or, as we're all animal rights activists, and we don't mind twisting the law, there's plenty of places you can go and download all these for free, but you can message me if you want to find that out, if you can't be bothered to pay. So they're definitely the ones to look at anyway. Obviously, if you've got a Mac, start with iMovie. iMovie is a great way to start, and if you feel you need more, you can upgrade to Final Cut. iMovie and Final Cut are pretty much the same, if I'm honest. Final Cut is just like the advanced version of iMovie, so use that with Windows. Like I said, I'm not a Windows user, so I'm not entirely sure, but you could give DaVinci Resolve a try, or you could just use the very basic Windows video editor. I think there's other ones like Camtasia and stuff like that around, which I think are very cheap as well. But yeah, I mean, if anyone in here uses any good Windows free editing software, maybe they can put it in the chat for people. Oh yeah, Filmora, that's another good one as well. What was the second one? Yeah, so it's the free ones are Windows Video Editor for PC and iMovie for Mac. The free pro one is DaVinci Resolve, and the paid but the more advanced ones are Final Cut for the Mac and Adobe Premiere, which is available for Mac and PC. And obviously, if you're serious about doing stuff, I would definitely recommend diving into either Premiere or Final Cut. You're going to be able to do so much more. You're going to get those, real professional videos. But it all depends. Like I said, start simple, build up as you go. Now, as someone will use Vegas Pro, but it's not free. Yeah, Vegas is another one as well. I never actually got around to using Vegas, but I heard it's pretty good. I mean, to be honest, with the kind of things you're editing, it's all pretty basic stuff. You're not going to be doing 3D rendering. You're not going to be using all these crazy things, doing hours and hours of color correction or anything, unless you really want to dive into that. It's pretty much going to be basic cuts. So you should be fine no matter what you're using. So some of my tips for editing. Now, one of the big things I see as a mistake that a lot of people do is when they do an outreach conversation or they film something, they put everything up. They just upload everything. And I think a lot of time that doesn't actually do them any favors. The way to get people engaged is to have engaging content. If you had a conversation with people and it wasn't engaging, there's no point in using it. It might have been, it was useful chatting to them in person and obviously doing what you do in outreach. But for a video, if it's not going to catch people, there's no point wasting your time on it. You just scrap it, move on to the ones that are going to get attention. I mean, you've all seen a million outreach videos, online from Joey or Humane Hancock or Vegan Gays or all these people that are doing stuff, and they're always good, they're always catchy, and that's what you want. You want people to go, oh, this is interesting, and stick around to the end. You don't want people to be like, oh, this is a bit slow and boring. So be brutal. Go through and just get rid of the junk. Even within a conversation, you don't have to upload the entire interaction. If there was a bit where it kind of went off for 5 minutes about something that you don't think's relevant, just cut it out. This is the joy of editing. You can just take the gold and put it all together and make it amazing, and don't worry about the length of it. I mean, even if you just end up with 2 minutes from a half an hour conversation, if those are 2 minutes of gold content, that's all you need. You just need someone to watch that and go, wow, that was awesome. That reaction was amazing. Or what you said there was, made me think. That's all you need. You don't need to put up every single thing possible, because, and the thing is as well, if people see that you do that and you upload everything, it doesn't make them want to watch the next video that you do, because they'll be like, oh, well, the last one was boring. I don't really, you want to gain the viewer's trust as well, and know that every single video you got up is going to be, it's going to be awesome. So I would definitely consider that. They always say, don't release your first cut it first, have it, do it first, and then have a look over it and be like, well, what else can I cut out of that? What else can make it awesome? And study other people's videos, what they've done. Look at like Joey's most successful ones. Or, I mean, to be honest, Joey is someone who actually likes to put up everything. He really does. I even tell him all the time, I'm just like, I wouldn't even edit that myself personally, some of them. But what he does to make him interesting, I just dropped something. What he does is interesting is he will find little bits in the conversations that weren't that good, and he will piece them together and put them all into a video, so it will switch between people. So even if you've just got like 15 seconds of a conversation that was good, and you think, oh, he doesn't make his own video, you could always keep that one back and then put it in with someone else that maybe had a little clip as well, and do a bit of a montage of just the good bits. Another thing you should definitely consider, which comes back to the audio with editing, is obviously if you're doing street outreach, there's a chance there's going to be a lot of background noise and everything, and you want the audio to be as crisp as possible. So with stuff like Adobe Premiere, with Final Cut, I think even with iMovie and stuff like that, you will see there are generally noise reduction tools that you can use, and I would definitely recommend playing around with those, because it will just lower that ambient noise around and allow people to just focus on what people are saying. Because if you're out in the street, there could be children screaming in the background, there could be other people doing outreach, and you want people to really focus on what's being said, to really have a look at those background noise things, and just see if they work for you. And another thing to bear in mind is, if you do have audio problems and people can't hear what you're saying, or in certain parts, caption them, put the words on the screen so that people can read it. Now, there's some really easy ways to do that. If you're using Adobe Premiere, they've actually got a thing built in now, which is amazing. You've actually got built-in caption maker. So it'll just literally caption your entire video for you. Or you can either do it manually, or there's a website called rev.com that will do it as well, if you send them the clips. But you do have to pay to do that. It's not, I don't think it's much. I think it might be like a $1 or something a minute, maybe. It's not like super expensive. But yeah, that's another option that you could look at if you do. And it's also worth doing that with social media videos as well, because you've got to realize a lot of people don't watch with the sound on their phone. They might be watching at work, or when they shouldn't be, or whatever, or on a train and they've got headphones. So putting captions on things can be super useful. And going back to the social media thing, obviously we're talking about picking those clips. Remember also to create your content in different formats as well. TikTok are obviously vertical videos. Maybe you can make something that's vertical. Some of them, just your standard landscape kind of image. So you want to kind of have a look and kind of see what works. But ultimately with editing is, you're telling a story. Ultimately, you need to grip people. You need to make it entertaining. You need to make it watchable. You want to. Ultimately, we're animal rights activists. We want people to watch these videos. That's what's most important. We want people to listen to what's being said and to make them think and go, oh, maybe I should make a change. So if there's anything in there you think is just dead space, just get rid of it. Like it's not doing anyone any favors, not doing you any favors, not doing the animals any favors to have these pointless bits of conversation. You just want to get to the point. People have very low attention spans these days, especially since TikTok's come along and everything. People are watching minute videos and flicking to the next or anything. If it's not engaging, you might have just wasted a good 2 hours editing a video that people are going to watch the first minute of, and then they're going to turn off, and you've just wasted your time. So just really hammer it and just remember that get the gold, basically. So as far as everything, I mean, that's kind of the basics there. Obviously we've gone over the audio, we've gone over cameras, lenses, any other useful things you might need, setup ideas, things to bear in mind when filming, and things to bear in mind when editing.